My 14-year-old niece let out a giggle and said, "Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even notice," as she unwrapped the brand new $900 phone I had bought her. Everyone else, about 20 people, laughed along, except for me. I gave a small nod and pulled out my phone. Just 2 taps, and every payment, credit line, utility, and subscription I'd been covering for them, gone. That same night, I walked away from everything. I cut all ties and left, carrying nothing but an old black backpack. And inside that backpack? Well, we'll get to that. But what echoed in my mind was still her voice. "Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even notice." She peeled the plastic off that expensive phone so delicately, but her words? They cut like a knife. The living room was full of noise, loud conversations overlapping in that careless way families do when they think everything's just fine. There was a cake sitting on the kitchen table, still waiting to be lit, but I already felt the fire burning in my chest. My sister Meredith didn't even glance up from the couch, just kept scrolling on her phone, smirking like she'd just won something. Like she'd been hoping for that exact moment. Mom stood by the stove, stirring something and acting like she didn't hear, but I saw her shoulders rise just slightly, her silent way of agreeing. And Dad? He didn't even try to hide it. He chuckled, lifted his beer, and muttered, "Well, she's not wrong." That set the room off again, laughter bouncing wall to wall. My cousins grinned, and even Uncle Gurge, who barely knew more than my name, let out a laugh into his drink. I just stood there. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just took it. Like I always had. I was the guy who paid for things. Who cleaned up messes. The dependable one. But never the one who mattered. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece said sweetly, already leaning into her mom and glued to the screen like nothing had happened. I watched her for a second, my heartbeat pounding in my ears, my face burning. The whole room seemed to shrink, closing in. I didn't say anything. Just gave a polite nod. That's what I did. I smiled. I played along. Always pretending. Meredith finally looked up at me. And in her eyes, I saw it. That smug little spark. Like she'd been waiting for this exact reaction. Me, standing there, silent and embarrassed. "All right, everyone, let's cut the cake." Mom's voice rang out, all fake cheer, like that was supposed to wipe away what just happened. But the bitterness stuck in my mouth like glue. I walked into the kitchen and leaned on the counter while everyone gathered around the table. The candles were lit, the usual birthday wishes were made, and I just stood there, fists slowly curling, my jaw locked tight. And somewhere inside all that pain, something colder started to take root. I felt my phone in my pocket. 2 quick taps. That's all it took. Every single account I'd opened for them, every bill, every subscription, every card, it all vanished. My fingers moved like they'd done it before. It felt natural, like my body knew it was time, even before my brain caught up. Just like that, it was all shut down. The noise around me faded. The room blurred. All those familiar faces started to feel like total strangers. They laughed, toasted, celebrated, but I wasn't really there anymore. I'd become a walking wallet. But not anymore. I slipped out without saying goodbye. Not a soul noticed. And you know what? My niece was right. Nobody noticed I was gone. I didn't go back home. I went to my apartment, packed the essentials into a small bag, then turned back to grab something I hadn't touched in years, an old black backpack shoved into the corner of my closet. But now, it had a job to do. I didn't fill it with clothes or valuables. Not anything they'd expect. And then I went back to the house. It was still full of chaos, laughing, shouting, music, the usual mess. I slipped in unnoticed, walked down the hallway, and quietly left the backpack near the stairs. Then I was gone. Really gone. By the time they found it, I'd already disappeared into the rearview mirror. Let them figure it out. Let them open it and wonder what it meant. Let the silence rattle. I thought they might stay quiet about it, or maybe come at me calmly. But the explosion came fast. Next morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. No missed calls, no warning, just fists slamming like they meant to break it down. "Open up. You think you can just do this?" It was Dad. His voice, angry, loud, shaking the walls. I stayed still. Didn't say a word. Just watched the door as it rattled under his fury. "I know you're in there. You think you're smart? Better than us." Dad's voice came through the door, not just angry, but cracked with something else. Fear, maybe. I didn't say a word. I wasn't going to play that game. Eventually, the banging stopped. I heard him stomp off, mumbling something under his breath before slamming his car door. But that wasn't the end of it. Not even close. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up. A text from Mom. Just one line. How could you do this to your own family? I didn't answer. An hour later, Meredith tried. She called. I just stared at the screen as her name flashed. Let it ring. Then another call. And another. Few in a row. Finally, a message. You think you're so clever? You think we can't survive without you? Fine. See how long you last without a family. I read it and smiled. Was that supposed to scare me? Or was it a gift in disguise? But the real chaos started that evening. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard a key turning in my lock. I froze. Nobody should have a key to this place. Nobody except. The door flew open. Dad charged in, face red, dripping sweat, and right behind him was Mom, wide-eyed and panicked. You think you can lock me out? Dad shouted. Get out, I said, calm and steady. Get out. He echoed, like the words offended him. This is what you've become? Mom's voice cracked, high-pitched and shaking. You're abandoning your own family? After everything we did for you? No, I said, drying my hair and leaning against the kitchen counter. You used me. That's not the same. Dad stepped closer, his fist tight at his side. You ungrateful little troublemaker. Try it. The words came out firm, without hesitation. A challenge. He didn't move. His hand shook, but we both knew the truth. He was never going to hit me. He'd always been a loudmouth, a bully hiding behind yelling. What did you do? Mom asked, voice breaking. The cards aren't working. Meredith can't pay her bills. The mortgage, everything's frozen. That's right, I said. All the stuff I set up. Everything I paid for. It's done. Dad let out a bitter laugh. Oh, you think that makes you powerful? Think we need you. Looks like you do, I said, shrugging. Considering you just broke into my apartment to beg. Beg, he growled. You think we're begging? That's enough, I snapped, cutting him off. I'm finished. Mom reached toward me. Please. We're your family. We're all you've got. No, I told her. You're all you've got. I'm done being your backup plan. Your wallet. Your punching bag. Dad's face twisted. You little pest. I raised my finger. Out. Now. You can't do this, Mom whispered, tears welling in her eyes. This is cruel. Cruel. I let out a short laugh. Cruel is calling your own son worthless while living off his money. Cruel is using me and laughing behind my back. Dad stepped forward again, but I didn't move. This time, he stopped. Shoulders dropped. Defeated. You'll regret this, he muttered. You'll come crawling back. I won't, I said, voice like steel. They stormed out, slamming the door. I listened to the sound of them leaving, but I knew it wasn't over. The next day, they tried something new. Meredith showed up at my office. I spotted her through the glass, face pale, eyes red and puffy. My boss glanced at her, then gave me a puzzled look as she started waving toward me. I didn't move from my desk. Sir, he said, awkwardly, there's a woman here. She's nobody, I said, not even glancing up. She didn't go right away. I watched her talking to the receptionist, her voice rising, her hands shaking. Then security came and walked her out. I knew that wouldn't be the last of her. Later that night, another knock. This time, it was my landlord. He stood there shifting from foot to foot. There's a bit of an issue, he said. Your family's downstairs, causing a scene. Tell them to leave, I said. Or call the cops. He blinked. But, it's your family. No, I said, looking him square in the eye. Not anymore. I watched them through the window, arms flailing, shouting nonsense, until security finally showed up and walked them off the property. But I knew how they operated. They weren't done. Not by a long shot. And I knew something else, too. Back in that house I left behind, there was a black backpack sitting in a closet. I left it there on purpose. Waiting. I wanted them to find it. The silence didn't last long. It never did with them. Silence, in their world, was just the build-up before another explosion. For days, I ignored their calls. Their texts. All the frantic voicemails. I even took time off work, just to sit in the quiet. To breathe. But I wasn't stupid. I knew they'd come back louder. It started with Meredith, throwing her usual tantrums through messages, blaming me for everything like always. Then came Mom, her voicemails full of sobbing, begging me to be the bigger person for the sake of the family. Then Dad. At first, he stuck to his old tricks. Screaming, cursing, trying to scare me into submission. But then he changed his tone. Calm, polished, fake. Son, he said, let's settle this like men. No drama. Just you and me. There's a game this weekend. Our team's playing. Let's talk. I knew it was bait. I could feel it in my bones. But I said yes. I wanted to see where this was going. So I went. And when I got to the stadium and saw the empty seats around him and that black backpack clutched in his hand, I knew. They didn't want peace. They wanted control. But they weren't dealing with the same person anymore. I wasn't the quiet, obedient son standing in the corner with a fake smile. Not anymore. The stadium was wild. People yelling, chanting, stomping on the metal bleachers. It was chaos. The perfect place to bury a conversation. He was waiting in Section 11, Row D. Nobody sitting near him, even though the place was packed. I saw him right away, waving with one hand, holding the backpack tight in the other. My backpack. I walked down slow and steady, keeping my eyes locked on his. He smiled when he saw me, smug, like he thought he had already won. Surprised I called you. He shouted over the crowd, patting the seat next to him. Finally ready to talk like men. Huh? Talk? I said, sitting down, staring at the bag. Is that what this is? Oh, it's more than that, he said, leaning in, dropping his voice to almost a whisper. You thought you were slick. Huh? Running off, cutting us off. But you left us a little present. His fingers tapped the backpack. We found this. And guess what? Genius? We know. Know what? I asked, voice flat and steady, like the cold wind blowing through the seats. Your secrets. Your lies. You think you're better than us? His voice was rising again. You always acted like some kind of saint. Like you were the one holding us all together. I almost laughed. Then open it, I said. Let's see what you think you found. His eyes flickered, fear or anger, maybe both. Don't play games, he said. I don't need to open it. I already know what's in there. You've been stealing from us. Lying. Pretending to be the perfect son while hiding your little stash. Stash? I leaned back against the cold seat. The only stash in there is the truth. Just then, the home team scored and the stadium exploded in cheers. But between us, in that little bubble of noise and tension, it was quiet. He just sat there, staring at the bag, hands shaking. You're bluffing, he said. Trying to confuse me. But it's over. We're telling everyone what kind of person you really are. How you abandoned your family. Go ahead, I said, waving toward the field. Tell them how I paid Meredith's rent for 2 years. How I bailed you out after you gambled half your pension away. Or how I bought that phone for your precious granddaughter, right before she told me I was worthless. His face darkened. Shut up. No, I said. Let's get real. That bag's full of proof. Everything I did for you. Everything you took from me. And you still think you've got the upper hand? His knuckles went white on the handle of the backpack. Don't talk to me like that. Like what? I leaned in close. My voice calm. My eyes locked on his. Like the only person here who's not afraid. Like the worthless piece of furniture you always treated me as? The walking wallet? The errand boy. He snapped, stood up fast and loud, enough to get a few heads turning behind us. Shut up, he barked. Sit down, I said, voice cold as steel. And for a split second, I saw it. That flicker in his eyes. Fear. He hated me, sure. But what really scared him? Losing control. He let out this shaky laugh, like he was trying to keep his mask on. What are you going to do, huh? Hit your own father? You think anyone here's going to take your side? You think they'd take yours? I nodded toward the crowd. They don't know either of us. But I can promise you, they're not going to care about some angry old man clutching a bag full of IOUs. Yes, it was the debt receipts and bills that I paid. I collected all these documents, I don't know why. I guess I got used to the usual order, so that everything was there. So that everything was in its place. This especially applied to documents. His face twisted. He leaned in close, hissing. You're an egoist. I just smiled. I was your lifeline, I said. And now? You're drowning without me. He swung. I saw it coming. His hand shaking, slow, thick fingers aimed right at my face. But I didn't move. Didn't flinch. That's what he wanted. Some big scene. Something he could use to flip the story and paint me as the villain. But I just stared at him calm. Still. Eyes locked. And his hand froze midair. Trembling. He couldn't do it. I should have left you on the street, he muttered, voice low, bitter. You were always a parasite. Funny. I leaned in, close enough to smell stale beer on his breath. That's exactly what I thought about you. Something cracked in him. I saw it. His arm dropped. His shoulders caved. And right then, the crowd erupted. Home team must have scored again. But for him, that noise might as well have been a funeral bell. I reached down, grabbed the backpack, and yanked it from his lap. He didn't even try to stop me. You want to know what's in here? I said, loud now. loud enough for the people nearby to hear. Everything I did for you. Every cent. Every sacrifice. People started watching. Whispering. A few raised their phones. I didn't care. You want the truth? I unzipped it and pulled out a fat stack of papers. There it is. Proof I carried you. Paid your bills. Saved your house twice. His face turned pale. And you talk about betrayal? I stood, holding those papers up high. You betrayed me the day you turned me into your personal ATM. The day you stood there and laughed when they told me I was nothing. Stop, he whispered. It sounded small. Hollow. He was sinking into his seat like he wanted to disappear. No. You wanted a scene? You got one. I tossed the papers. They scattered everywhere, sliding down the steps like dry leaves in the wind. And then I turned. Walked up the stairs. Past the stairs, the whispers, the phones. Behind me, he shouted, voice cracking. You can't just leave. But I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. For the first time, his words meant nothing. They didn't stop, not right away. The day after the stadium, after Dad's pride bled out all over those cold metal seats, my phone rang nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails, accusations, begging, threats. That familiar cycle. I ignored every single one. Dad cracked first. Went from screaming to pleading in less than a day. We can work this out, he said. I'll forget everything. Let's just be a family. I didn't respond. Then it was Mom. Her text full of guilt. You're breaking our hearts. We didn't mean it. Family is all we have. I didn't read most of them. Then Meredith. Hers were poison, straight out of the gate. You're a coward. A selfish, worthless coward. You've ruined everything. Then, please, just talk to me. I didn't mean it. I was scared. Don't do this. But I did. I gave them silence. That was my answer. That was my revenge. At first, they didn't believe it. Thought I was bluffing. Thought I'd come crawling back like always. But then the days turned into weeks. And the bills started showing up. The favors dried up. The people who used to take their side stopped calling. And little by little, they started to understand. They couldn't reach me anymore. Not through calls, not through guilt, not even through shame. One day the landlord from their building called me. His voice was shaky, nervous. He said they hadn't paid rent in months. I told him it wasn't my problem. Because it wasn't. Then Mom sent a photo, everyone sitting around a table in the dark, one candle flickering in the middle. We have nothing left, she wrote. I deleted it. Didn't even blink. A few nights later, walking home from the grocery store, I saw him. Dad. He was outside my building, pacing like a madman. His face looked pale, eyes wild. Hands shaking. That old fire of his gone. Replaced by something else. Fear. When he spotted me, something lit up in his face. Twisted hope. He rushed toward me. Listen. You can't do this. You're my son. I didn't even slow down. No, I said. I was your wallet. He stepped in front of me, voice cracking. We raised you. We gave you everything. You used me, I said, looking him dead in the eye. And now you have nothing. I moved to step around him, but he grabbed my arm. You don't get to do this, he growled. The old anger was back, bubbling up. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away? I know I can. I yanked my arm free. And I did. He swung at me. Sloppy. Weak. It barely hit my shoulder, more like a shove than a punch. He stumbled, catching himself on the side of the building, gasping. Pathetic, I muttered. His face twisted again. That rage, that ugly fire, back in his eyes. You'll come crawling back, he spat. You always do. You're nothing without us. I laughed. Loud. The sound echoed down the street. I was nothing with you. And I turned my back on him. I walked away. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. That night, I tossed my phone in the bottom drawer of my desk and left it there. The messages piled up. Missed calls. Voicemails. But none of them could touch me now. A week later, I got a letter. Handwritten. Mom's shaky handwriting. Please. Your father is sick. Meredith's losing it. We're falling apart. You're the only one who can fix this. Please come home. I didn't even finish reading it. Crumpled it up. Tossed it. They were falling apart? Good. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't. I didn't run. I didn't change my number. I didn't hide. I just stopped being a part of their world. And that world, it crumbled without me. Meredith's friends stopped picking up. Mom's distant cousins, the ones who'd send polite Christmas cards, stopped responding. And Dad? He finally blew up at work. Got fired. For good. But I didn't watch it happen. I didn't care. I was living, cooking for myself, sleeping peacefully, taking long walks without waiting for a message to explode my day. They were just voices now. Ghosts. Ghosts I left behind in a burning house. And I was free. Months passed. Silence stopped feeling strange. It became my friend. I woke up when I wanted, ate without guilt, walked around the city like I was meeting it for the first time. Sometimes, I'd catch myself waiting for that buzz of panic, that guilt, that demand. But it never came, because I'd done it. I buried them, not in the ground, but in my life. One autumn morning, I walked down Main Street, past the cafe where I used to buy overpriced cakes for Meredith's birthday, the boutique where I wasted cash on gifts, the restaurant where I paid for every single family dinner. All those places, they weren't memories anymore. Just ghosts. On the corner, a street musician was playing. Slow, aching tune. His voice was rough, honest. Didn't try to be perfect. Just real. I stopped and listened. The song wasn't about love. Wasn't about heartbreak. It was about letting go. The world moved around me, but I stood still, breathing it in. When the song ended, I tossed a 15 in the case. The guy nodded. I smiled. Not because I had to. Not because someone expected it. But because I wanted to. That's the difference. I didn't need them. I never did. I walked on. Each step lighter. Each breath easier. And as the sun slipped behind the rooftops, painting the sky in shades of fire, I felt it again. That quiet truth. I was free.